comfortable with you. I feel like I'll always love you.
My cat jumped on me just as I was about to go live. The Pittsburgh Steelers get one of the best players in the NFL, but that doesn't necessarily make them a winner of the offseason. I'll explain that, plus the fighters to watch for UFC 314 and the WWE, chef's kiss. Every note they needed to hit on Monday Night Raw. That and a whole lot more as Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. We're always told you need a visual hook. That's not exactly what I had in mind here, but yeah. Some people may be wondering why there's a cat on a lot of the branding. This is why. Say hi to Bailey, everyone. Welcome to Couch Potato Diary, presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag, that sweater in the background, and a whole lot more great stuff. Also, we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime. Get 25% off, some great stuff to help you with the energy and with the memory and all of those sorts of things, designed for gamers as well. So great stuff there. Busy show for you guys today. We are just trying it out on YouTube, and already it looks like the stream is going pretty well. So that's sweet. Coming up, like I said, free agency winners and losers. Gonna look at UFC 314, the fighters to watch. Was hoping to also get a look at some fight announcements that have been made over the last little bit. That's probably not going to happen coming up on the one today. Just kind of ran out of time because did an interview. So coming up tomorrow, we're gonna be looking at the Masters. But for today, it's the NFL and then the UFC and a whole lot of pro wrestling as the WWE, the road to WrestleMania continues. And I've been in Japan for the last little bit, so haven't been able to talk about everything that's going on, so wanted to get to what's been working and what hasn't been working on the build to WrestleMania as we speak. So going to do that, a Monday Night Raw recap, and then going to close with a look at what AEW Dynamite needs to hit coming up on Wednesday. Again, for those who are new here to the streams and all of that, doing the Tuesday and Wednesday podcast on this today. So if you want to get the podcasts early, check out the live streams now on youtube.com/at Couch Potato Diary. So let's dive right in. The National Football League free agency, it's kind of petered off now, so we can figure out who's won, who's lost so far as we get ready for the NFL draft. So let's talk about winners and losers of NFL free agency. Cat's not going away. NFL free agency is... a lot of the big names have now come and gone through free agency. So I think a pretty good time to figure out who are the winners and who are the losers. You saw the subscribe button come up there before. If you're watching this on YouTube or any other video platform, would love a subscription on there if you could, if you like this. We got a lot of great sports content here on Couch Potato Diary. And if you're listening in podcast form, subscribe wherever you are listening as well. So let's dive in. Let's start with the winners. We start positively on this show. God, this cat's got a grip, man. I'm going to be a homer for a second. I think the Vegas Raiders have been kind of a winner of the offseason so far. I have this listed as free agency, and they've made a couple moves. Like Chin in the secondary, I think, is actually a really, really good move. That they've helped bolster the pass rush a little bit as well. But it is a lot of the trades that they have made, or the trades, I guess, that they have made, that I think makes them one of the winners of this process so far. When you look at going from a season ago, Antonio Pierce and Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback coach duo, going from that to Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, you feel pretty good about where things are going. And so now, like, are the Raiders a Super Bowl contender? Probably not. Are they significantly better than they were a season ago? Yes, absolutely. they are. And the AFC is wildly competitive, so I don't know if it even gets them into a playoff spot right now. But when you look at where they're going to be drafting, you look at what else is available. I just also, it looks like she's trying to leave, so we'll get a little face shot. Bye, Bailey. Yeah, you got a bed over there. You can just, there we go. Anyway, sports. I do think that when you look at where the Raiders were going to be drafting and what was going to be available, and really it's not, we've talked about it a little bit here on the podcast before, this is not really the best draft to really need a quarterback in. And so that they go out, they get Geno Smith, he's under contract for a couple more years. If Shedeur Sanders falls to them at 6, I even what you're paying Geno, you can still have Shedeur kind of redshirt there a little bit. Or if you want to go with like a Jalen Milroe in the second round or something along those lines, he can still redshirt behind Geno Smith. And so I just think the Raiders have put themselves in a really good spot at quarterback. You have a kid who already in 1 year has looked like one of the best tight ends in the National Football League to kind of build this offense around. I just think that they have addressed a few needs already here in this offseason, and they've put themselves in a spot where they are drafting in the first round, they're going to be able to address a few more needs. And so I think that's one of the things you've seen throughout this, and it's one of the things we talked about in the free agency preview, is that this was a draft that kind of lined up pretty well, actually, with free agency in terms of the offensive line. For wide receivers, it doesn't really help out a whole lot. Quarterback, definitely not. But offensive line, if you needed an offensive lineman, it was probably better to wait until the draft to address that than go out and maybe spend a little bit on a free agent O-lineman. We'll talk about a couple teams that maybe needed to do a little bit more on that in a second. But the Raiders, I think, taking advantage of the strengths of the draft and where they're going to be picking to kind of help address some of the needs that they have. So I think the Raiders are definitely a winner of this offseason. An honorable mention to the Patriots as well. They've had the most cap space, and so they've gone out and just made a few smart additions, but I don't have them as a absolute locked in stone cold winner. Second winner, the Chicago Bears. I think it was obvious to everyone that they needed to address the offensive line. And they were a team that, because of the youth they have at quarterback, but also the investment they make with a first overall pick in Caleb Williams, they needed to get an offensive line and couldn't just wait on, well, it's a good offensive line draft, so let's just go do that. And so they make a couple of trades, they make a couple of signings, and really just lock in the offensive line spot. And now I think it puts them in a position, because they got a couple of veteran guys, right? It puts them in a position where they can still draft there. And now you're trying to kind of follow the Eagles model as much as you can. We talked about it before. The Eagles model is just get a bunch of very talented players. But one thing that the Eagles have done really well is kind of backfill while those veterans are coming through. And so you can still go out and draft a offensive lineman and have them play behind a Tooney for a couple of years and just try to work them in a little bit and develop them. And so once those guys kind of age out, now you have a player with a high pedigree coming in and you don't miss a beat. And so that you can really see what the Bears are trying to do in that sense. And really that was kind of the only need they had. Like, you like the weapons that they have on offense. I think Caleb Williams is still a good quarterback, and defensively this team played really well a season ago. So the offensive line was kind of the missing piece, and I think they addressed that very, very well in this draft. So in free agency. So far so good. The Bears definitely a winner in free agency. A couple more winners to come, but also if you're watching this on YouTube, either live or after the fact, make sure you hit that bell button and get notifications so you know when videos are dropping here from Couch Potato Diary. All that stuff just helps out as we're trying to grow the program. Next winner, the Minnesota Vikings. They are in a phenomenal spot, and they have not gone with the game plan that I had suggested in the our offseason previews, but they have done it in a way that has been very aggressive and has, I think, been very effective. I thought, just stick with Sam Darnold. Like, that this team was very close to being the number one seed in the NFC a season ago, and then 8 days really just sends the season and the perception of the season into a spiral. But now I was a little hesitant because JJ McCarthy, a little unproven, all those different things. So maybe you don't want to just be locking in that kid as the number one starter when you have this very talented football team. So let's just stick with what we know. We know we can make Sam Darnold work. You maybe have to pay a little bit more than you want to, but Sam's going to know that he's in an offense that fits him, and we are going to know that we have a quarterback that fits our offense for the most part. They didn't do that. They let Sam Darnold walk. They're putting all their eggs in the JJ McCarthy basket, but they are spending that money very effectively. I thought this was a very well-rounded, very deep team before. Now they are one of the more well-rounded and deeper teams in the NFL with some of the additions that they have made. So I love what the Minnesota Vikings have done. And this was one... Sorry. This is why I usually lock them out. This was certainly a off-season game plan that I can get behind, and just a perfect use of some of the money to kind of get away from Sam Darnold. You're taking a risk with a rookie quarterback, but you have to feel pretty good about the direction of things. Swig of coffee for the working man. Cute puppy as well. Very animal themed so far here on Couch Potato Diary today. Last one of the winners. The New York Jets. Justin Fields, Look, this is now make or break for him, right? And now he's getting paid handsomely if he breaks, so he'll be fine. But he is, I think, at least good enough to let this roster kind of flourish a little bit. And a lot of the talk going into last season was, look, maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't capital letters Aaron Rodgers like he was before, but this is a really good roster, and he can just do enough to not screw it up and get this team across the finish line. That was obviously not the case, but it's still a good roster. And if Wilson just is fine sticking around now, you have him, you have Breece Hall, you have, I think, a decent, at least, offensive line and some talent on defense. You don't need Justin Fields to come out and win you a national championship like he did in college. You just need him to just, like I said yesterday, just keep it between the white lines, man. Like, let's just keep this thing on the road. I think it's a great value. I think it is, like, probably the second best quarterback available, and probably the best quarterback available to the New York Jets, because they're not trading up to get a Cam Ward, and they weren't going to make the trade for a Geno Smith or go out and get a Sam Darnold. Like, the quarterbacks that were available specifically didn't work for them. So it makes sense to go out and get this guy and really lock this in as a solid piece for a team that I think is going to be competitive in the AFC. And so, like, you look at it, we have two of our winners are from the AFC, which are two teams that weren't necessarily certainly weren't necessarily in the conversation for AFC contenders. And so I'm not saying, again, the Raiders and the Jets, like, watch out Chiefs or anything like that, but they have worked their way into that playoff discussion. And you look at the two winners from the NFC, it's the Bears and the Vikings. And so the toughest division in the NFC getting a little bit tougher with those two teams doing what they are doing. So, it's going to be difficult to make your way through the just the talent in this league right now is at such a good, strong, high level right now. So you love to see that. We'll get to the losers here in just a second. A little bit later on today over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. We're going to be doing a video game stream, going to be continuing on with our Blue Jays stream. So we'll be talking some Vladdy, talking some baseball. Join me there. That is a 3 o'clock Mountain Time start over, again, twitch.tv/primetimepk. All right, into the losers we go. And we begin with the San Francisco 49ers. Last year kind of had season from hell vibes to it, and now they aren't doing a whole lot to get better. Deebo Samuel, that one just felt like it wasn't working. We need to free up some money. Let's move this out and move it on. We have Ricky Pearsall who can kind of take that spot, and we think Brandon Ayuk can be that guy. So, okay, good. Done and dusted. Awesome. Fantastic. But they keep losing pieces and losing pieces and losing pieces, and you're waiting for them to make the move to replace some of those, and it's not coming. And I just, in an NFC that is getting more and more competitive, I worry that they are falling behind here quite a bit. And now, they have a big ticket coming up in Brock Purdy, and he's going to have to get paid. but that doesn't mean you just can't put out a good football team also. And I just think a lot of pieces that made this team are starting to go away. And there isn't an obvious replacement. If there was, last year wouldn't have been the year that it was. So they are putting a lot of eggs in Brock Purdy just figuring it out, and Kyle Shanahan just getting this thing back on track. And I have some concerns about the 49ers. It has just been loss after loss after loss after loss after loss, and it hasn't really worked. Another classic franchise gets into the loser category, as the Dallas Cowboys are losers of free agency so far. I think there's intrigue in a couple of the running back moves they made, Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. I talked about the Williams one yesterday. I kind of meant to lump the Sanders one in and just forgot. But that's a very Cowboys move. It's kind of Raidersy too, as a fan of that team. It does kind of scream to that kind of strategy of these are players at one point that produced well, and for whatever reason they aren't now. Let's see if we can get the most out of them. And so from that aspect, it's bargain hunting at running back. You can do that, but the problem is they did bargain hunting on everything. Like you look at the moves that the Cowboys made, and it kind of looks like when you're starting a Madden franchise right at the start of free agency, and you look at your rosters like, well, that ain't it. So you go through and, okay, well, these are the guys who are left. 1 year contract, 2 year contract. You're in an 80. You're fine. But they did that in the first 2 days of free agency. Now, again, they don't have a ton of wiggle room with some big contracts that they have signed and will need to sign. But I don't think they were little nibbles away from being a competitive football team again this season. They make a coaching change, which I was for. Again, I kind of said begrudgingly, like I'm not a Mike McCarthy guy at all. But I said begrudgingly that this was a team that really played hard for their coach. So coaching maybe wasn't necessarily the big problem. Although, again, you move on from Mike McCarthy, you have a chance to upgrade. I don't think Schottenheimer was that. Okay, so maybe you have to make some upgrades in the offense, or make some upgrades on the roster, sorry. And I don't think they've done that either. So I think they have done a lot, but I don't think that it has led to a lot, if that makes sense. So I just don't think they're in a very good spot right now. When you look at the Eagles, when you look at great moves by Washington, they are another kind of honorable mention in the winners category with the Tunsil trade and stuff like that. They are getting better, and the Giants are at least going to be competent-ish next season. So you look inside that division, and it's tough to like what the Dallas Cowboys are doing. Didn't mean to set up this transition this way, but not tough to like this show. Make sure that you give us a like here on Couch Potato Diary, and subscribe on YouTube and wherever you are listening in podcast form, or if you're watching this later on Daily Motion. It's a like and a follow, I believe, over on there. Next loser. The next two coming from the AFC. The Houston Texans. I have them as a loser. We said before that they kind of needed to make a splash at wide receiver because Tank Dell's going to be out for most of the year, if not all of it. Stephon Diggs, that was probably just not going to happen. So they need to get a guy. I don't know if Christian Kirk is that guy necessarily. Now, I do think it's an interesting compliment to Nico Collins, and it is kind of, we don't need Tank Dell. We have a Tank Dell at home. It does kind of like he can kind of just copy and paste into that role pretty well. But when you are looking at trying to keep up with the Chiefs and the rest of the Ravens and all of them in the AFC, it is Bills as well. It is going to be difficult, I think, for them to do that with that offense. And now you then go out and trade away Laramie Tunsil. And yes, that there were moves that needed to be made, but Tunsil, according to PFF, which say what you will, but he was one of the better offensive linemen in the league last year. So again, this is a draft that is deep on offensive linemen, and so maybe in totality, these moves might make a little bit more sense. But I think that this is a Texans team that hit a bit of a speed wobble last year and is really just banking on, it's going to be fine. And I don't know that it will be. The good thing for them is that there isn't a whole lot of challenge from inside the division. The Colts, I like the Daniel Jones signing as a backup quarterback to Anthony Richardson. You like that all the way up until he has to play games. But I don't think the Colts have done enough to really be a challenge. So the Texans are still probably going to win this division coming up in 2025, and that's going to be fine for them. But if you want to take that next step with this rookie, or now third-year quarterback in C.J. Stroud, I don't think that this is the way to go about it necessarily. And the last loser here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, they went out and addressed wide receiver and got probably the best wide receiver available in DK Metcalf. Excellent trade, fits perfectly. Love that. But Russell Wilson leaves, which neutral, I would say. But Justin Fields also leaves. And so now the musical chairs have kind of played out in a way where you are basically pigeonholed into Aaron Rodgers or an option that is worse. And I think the Aaron Rodgers option is a bad one. And so when that's best case scenario, I just think things have played out in a way that really leave you lacking for the upcoming season at quarterback. And again, when you look at how stacked the quarterback position is in the AFC, like we just saw with Aaron Rodgers, he ain't it. And now that the Steelers probably have a better roster than the Jets, not probably, the Steelers do have a better roster than the Jets do. But Aaron Rodgers ain't it, man. Like, I get, we all got very happy about that last game of the year and what he was able to do in a game that was meaningless for both teams. But he is not a high-level quarterback anymore. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback anymore. If he is, he's bottom half of the league, and that's not what this team needs at this point. So bravo to them for going out and addressing a big need at wide receiver, but you need someone to get him the football, and I just don't think that someone is available now. And so I just feel like they have played it pretty well at all the other spots, but the main one, the quarterback position, is not one that has gone well for them. So unless something falls to them in the draft that we're not necessarily anticipating, I think that this offseason is going to be an overall loser for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So those are the winners and losers in NFL free agency. More NFL free agency talk as the week rolls along. We now shift to combat sports. UFC 314 comes up this weekend from Miami, and we went over it yesterday. A couple very intriguing fights at the top of this card, but that doesn't stop with the top two fights. There are some bangers on UFC 314 and a couple of very, very big fights for a couple of very interesting fighters in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Let's go through it and look at the fighters to watch coming up at UFC 314. UFC 314 this Saturday. Pay-per-view on the top of the card. It is Alex Volkanovski against Diego Lopez for the featherweight championship. Michael Chandler also in a must-win as he takes on Paddy Pimblett. But the intrigue, as mentioned before, does not stop at the top. We have a few fighters to watch. We got two fights that have caught my eye and then one undercard fighter that we need to watch. So overall, it's a pretty good card, I would say. The UFC have certainly done bigger and better, but they've also certainly done worse recently. So we're going to start here with the one that seems kind of obvious, but it is Patricio Pitbull taking on Yair Rodriguez. Pitbull, one of the, like, he is a Mount Rushmore guy in Bellator, and now he is coming over to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he is getting an all-action fight test to start. We talked about this fight when it was announced. It is finally here, and I am so excited. This is going to be just an absolute war and an absolute brawl. And look, I don't know if Pitbull at this point in his career has championship aspirations or anything like that, right? Like, he is like I said, all-time great in Bellator, but I don't know if he comes into the UFC and just, boom, rockets to a title. But this is going to be an interesting test to see where he is at. Yair Rodriguez has challenged for titles before. He fights in a style that Pitbull likes to fight in as well. So we get to see what can you do as a fighter at this high of a level, going up against a style that fits the style that you want to do. So I think it is a really intriguing fight from that sense to just see, like, okay, this is kind of like a lot of it is playing up for you. We're not just putting you in there against the wrestler who's going to grind it out on you for 15 minutes. We're going to see in the style that you want, how competitive are you in the Ultimate Fighting Championship? very, very interesting fight. And for Yair, like, it's a big name. He's looking to work his way back into a championship opportunity. And so this is a big test for him against a guy who is not like all-time great or anything like that, but a guy who is, of his era, a very, very, very good fighter making his UFC debut. So a lot of intrigue and a very, very fascinating fight coming up. That one's on the main card of UFC 314. Down on the undercard, I believe, Dan Ige against Sean Woodson. Dan Ige is always going to be in the fighters to watch. I have appreciated his career, but it's hit a bit of a speed wobble. It's back-to-back losses, and I think 3 of his last 4, taking on Sean Woodson, who we would not consider a prospect at this point, but someone who is on a pretty good run in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I forgot to write the records down, but I believe 13-1-1 coming into this fight. And so this is, again, a bit of a litmus test for both of these guys. Ige coming off of a few losses, like how far down are we? No offense to Sean Woodson, but how far away are we from a championship opportunity? Because like he lost a couple of fights ago to a guy who's getting a championship shot now, right? So, okay, but how far down are we? And for Woodson now, it's kind of okay, how for real is this? Because if you can get past Dan Ige, now we're getting into, maybe not 2 fights away from a title, but we are getting into challenging higher up, top 10, top 15, flirting maybe even with top 5 type of talent, if we can win this one and then put a couple of other ones together. So this is a real interesting one to see, like, where are both of these guys? Ige, veteran, been around for a while, but has hit a bit of a speed wobble. Woodson has been around for a while as well, but hasn't really faced a test like this one before. So really interested to see where these two guys are at, and a fun kind of litmus test fight coming up at UFC 314. And our last fighter to watch, it's Yan Xiaonan. Quite the fall, going from title challenger to now on the prelims, and not even the main fight on the prelims, I don't believe. I still think there is a very dangerous fighter in there for Xiaonan, but admittedly, it has not gone particularly well as of late. And so where is she going into this one? She's 35 years old. She is coming off of a win over Tabitha Ricci after the unanimous decision win over Zhang Wei Li. So we have this setback, really tough one to take. Big stage, UFC 300, we get the loss. We come back, it's a decision win over Tabitha Ricci. Now we're trying to build it back up, going up against Verna Jandiroba. Rolls off the tongue. 36-year-old out of Brazil, coming off of a win over Amanda Lemos. And so again, you are now Jandiroba, who I don't view, again, 36 years old, we're not talking about a prospect here, but Lemos is a talented fighter, but potentially, like, title challenging days are over. And so a win here for Verna, and all of a sudden now Xiaonan might be in that talented fighter, but title challenging days are over category, and that's not, I think her talent is above that. So this is, we talk a lot about how UFC 314 is kind of this fight for relevance for a few people on this card, and I think it's the same here for Xiaonan, that this is a spot where if she wants to get back to that title level, this is a win. And it probably needs to be a finish as well to work her way back into that conversation. Although no one is really jumping out ahead or anything like that. But it's been a lot of decisions lately. I got a decision win against Ricci. She knocks out Andrade, and a decision win over a Mackenzie Dern. Now, Dern's coming on a little bit as well, but this is, I think, a time for Xiaonan to establish, like, look, I know I lost, and that sucks, but I am still at that level, so let me show you that I'm at that level. That this, I think, needs to be a bit of a stamp here from Yao Xiaonan coming up this weekend at UFC 314. So, 2 fights and 1 extra fighter to watch coming up for this pay-per-view. Coming up on the YouTube stream on Thursday and on the podcast on Friday, we will have UFC 314 preview for you, running through all the big fights and giving some predictions, some underdog picks, and stuff like that here on Couch Potato Diary. Let's move on now to the world of professional wrestling. WWE Monday Night Raw had a lot of pressure on it going into Minneapolis. We said going in that there were a few notes that they need to hit, and they hit them perfectly. Let's break down a really fun night of Monday Night Raw. The road to WrestleMania is really ramping up. They're back stateside. We're getting shots of Allegiant Stadium. We're plugging different things. For some reason, Tony Hinchcliffe's on commentary for matches, but whatever. We are getting ready for WrestleMania. And there was a lot that I said going into this needed to happen, and I think they kind of checked all the boxes on it, really. I think it hit so many compelling notes going into this final episode. And so I wasn't planning on doing this, but let's go back and check. What did I say yesterday going into this pay-per-view? Like, what needed to be hit? Jey Uso needs to step up now. Done. 100% check mark on that. The Paul Heyman CM Punk chat, so interested in this. Well, we didn't get a lot of CM Punk chatting, but I thought Seth Rollins kind of tied everything in together, so check. And then the world title match, I thought the New Day being champions going into Mania with some kind of shenanigans would be a good thing. That they end up getting a win, but by disqualification and whatnot. So we don't exactly check that box, but we have a good match and we have a decent story, I think, if they want to do that at WrestleMania. So really, this show was exactly what the WWE needed it to be. Let's go a little bit more in depth. Jey Uso cut the promo of his life in that. Just absolutely excellent. And just, it's those details as well. And he's coming down from the crowd. And I got on Pat McAfee at Elimination Chamber. I just didn't think that he really met the moment there. I thought he fit this one perfect, where it was like, hey, look, he's not eating, you know, like you still make the jokes. Everyone else here is eating all over Gunther and all those things. Like you can still make jokes about it, but it did also, I think, kind of meet that moment where this is serious time now. It's winning time now. And he comes down and then he can't even look at Gunther. And it's kind of playing into what he wants to do with this promo, but I think it's also kind of playing into the motivations of Jey himself. Like for the promo aspect, he is wanting to give Gunther this kind of like inflated sense of self and then just immediately take it away from him and kind of give him this, oh shit, this guy's for real moment. And so he's looking away as if like, oh man, I can't even look at this guy. But in reality, he's not looking at this guy because the longer he stares at him, the more he wants to rip his fucking head off. And so I thought he played that really, really well. And then he takes the glasses off. They did have one little production snafu where you can see him kind of go microphone and then he smacks the microphone away. So we probably could have wide shotted that one maybe a little bit better. But aside from that, I thought he was great. And then he gets into the promo and the vulnerability of all of it. Like, yeah, I was scared, man. I was. You had me. You absolutely had me. And just like playing into that, you know, and what we kind of did it something similar with a Gunther match last year with Sami Zayn, but Sami wasn't really willing to admit that he was afraid of Gunther, and then he is finally able to in the backstage stuff with Chad Gable, and then he rushes on out from there and goes on and wins the Intercontinental title. And so when you can finally admit that fear we are seeing with Gunther, it is that breakthrough moment. And so to have that vulnerability from that character, I thought was great. And then like there are ways that you could go with it, but the family one where it's like you got family, like you, and just tying it all into that. And then instead of like, you did this to Jimmy, it was, I let you do this to Jimmy because of my own fear. And then McAfee, I thought, summed it up pretty well after. It's like, hey, look, man, my brother, like he got stitches and stuff, but you know, from the hangover, but did you die? He's still breathing. He's still standing. You are just a man and I can take you down at WrestleMania. I thought it was just the I'm not afraid of you thing. I thought it was the perfect note to hit. We said that this needed to find another level and it did. Jey had the seriousness that you want from a world title feud, and he had like I said, it was the promo of his life that he cuts. And then Gunther reacts perfectly where he is smug and he is smarmy, and then there is a oh shit kind of a moment like, oh, I may have fucked up. And Jey even said in the thing, like, if you would have just kept on keeping on, I would have been afraid of you. You had me, but you couldn't help yourself. And so again, like we just get into the motivations of these characters and we get into the different dynamics that are at play here. And I just thought it hit everything absolutely perfect. And so this sets up a lot of intrigue going into WrestleMania now, because there was a bit there, like right at the beginning, where it's like, yeah, you know what, man? Jey is the champ. Let's just do it and let's get wild and let's see what happens. And then as the build's going on, it's like, no, he's not ready. It's Gunther's title still. Let's just keep rolling with that. But now you see that promo and you see it and it's like, how can you not give this guy the championship at WrestleMania? How can you not let this guy have this big moment when he has finally broken through in this way? But then at the same time, it's like Gunther's this stoppable guy, and are we just going to have him lose championships at WrestleMania every single year? So there's a lot of intrigue going into this match now that kind of comes away from it. I thought it was just, with 1 week left, I thought it was the perfect note for them to hit, and I thought they did that in a fantastic way here with this promo. So just great work from Jey Uso on that one. Before we keep going here with Raw, again, we're going to be doing a Twitch stream coming up at 3 o'clock Mountain Time over at twitch.tv/primetimepk. And if you're watching this right now, share it with your friends. I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel. That's why we started doing the things live here now. So share it with your friends, get a chat going, and it's always more fun when there's more people involved. So make sure you share those videos. The other big one that we needed to hit with this whole story, with this whole build, was the Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Roman Reigns match. This hit all the notes that it needed to as well, I thought. You could have left a lot of it unsaid, honestly, with well, I mean, he's in Punk's corner, but what's going to stop him from going and helping out Roman Reigns and stuff like that? And so I thought Seth just kind of almost stating the obvious, brought it out to light a little bit more, and just added a little bit more of that, oh, okay, so they know. So what are we doing with this now? So I think very fascinating what we're going to see now from this one coming up at WrestleMania. What is the Paul Heyman kind of tie-in with everything now, with Punk and with Roman Reigns? And so I thought that was great. And then he's pushing Heyman's buttons. It's awesome. And it's CM Punk coming out now. And so there's a different layer now that you are fighting for, where obviously all three of these guys hate each other, but now there's a Paul Heyman level to it that is obviously connecting Roman and Punk, but now Seth Rollins gets that connector with it as well, with him kind of bullying, and you see kind of the emotional attachment that these guys have. So this is great, and this is something that 20 years ago it would have been over a blonde girl, and it would have been fighting for the love of someone. But now it is just it's fighting for friendship, and it's fighting, which, God, coming out of the mouth sounds really bad, but not bad, but kind of lame. But it is fighting for just fighting for a little bit more. But it doesn't have to be a romantic thing or anything like that. It's, maybe I'm looking a little bit too far into it, but I think it was great. I thought it was awesome. The one thing that I didn't like was how and it's been for a little bit here, how Rollins is going about kind of justifying his hatred of CM Punk. It can be very easy to, right? And he's kind of hit a bunch of them, right? It's this guy left for 10 years and wanted this company to fail. You wanted me to fail. You left and left me to carry the ball, and I have done that. And now you're coming back and trying to just take advantage of the work that I have done. How dare you? You can do that very easily. But we're getting into the soul of the wrestling industry is on the line in a non-title triple threat match at WrestleMania. That's where you lose me a little bit, because then I go, well, it's not for a championship, but it's for the soul. But I thought we did that already. I thought we did the soul thing. So why do we need to do that one more time here? So I just thought that it's hitting the same note as last year, because we did that last year, where it's we need Cody to take down Roman, and we are fighting Roman because he is trying to ruin everything. And if he is at the top for one more year, it is going to take the soul of wrestling away. You know what? I can buy that one. But now we're doing it again, and it's just we're going back to it, and I don't love that. So I do kind of wish that Seth was going about it maybe in a different way. But I thought he was great. And I've said before, I'm not the biggest Seth Rollins promo guy. Just something about it doesn't necessarily click with me. But I thought he was great here. And then the ending where, now you owe me a favor, just adds another layer of the intrigue to that. Couple other notes from this one. The women's title finally getting locked in as the triple threat. I thought it was a good segment. We are taking a few logical leaps with Rhea getting into this one and how they have tried to position her into it. I think there was probably an easier way to go about it that honestly probably made a little bit more sense from just a realism standpoint. But the one thing I don't like is that it's one thing for us to kind of have this perceived afterthought of Io there. And again, I am protective of my genius of this guy because she is my absolute favorite wrestler right now. But when they are just flat out saying in their promos, I'm going to beat you for the women's title. I'm going to beat you for the women's title. And Io's like, bitch, I'm going to drop kick you into someone's shoulder here. I feel like it's tough enough for Io to stand out with these two stars in this match. I don't think we need them to be telling us that we don't need to pay attention to Io as well. And so I am a little bit worried that WrestleMania is going to come and Io is going to win this match, but the story is going to be Bianca and Rhea were too focused on beating each other, and Io is able to just swoop in and get the win. And so you don't really legitimize someone who is one of the better performers in the world right now. But again, I'm very protective of my Genius of the Sky. A reminder that you can catch this if you're watching on YouTube. We can catch it in podcast form. It is available on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. Couple other notes, like I said before, the New Day against the War Raiders, I thought it was a really strong match. If this is a Mania program, I have no problem with it. They have a built-in kind of chemistry from some of the work that they did before as opponents a few years ago, and obviously it's a little bit different now with them on either sides, on different sides of the babyface heel equation, and this New Day, I think, kind of turn deserves a spot at WrestleMania, so I would like to see them in that spot, and War Raiders are just really, really good. So I think that is a strong match that you can kind of put together. And just thinking about it, like watching the Usos teamed up, it would be fun if we got another New Day against Usos program with the New Day on the heel side. I think that would be kind of fun, but that's probably a little bit ways down the road. Valkyria against Bayley, this match absolutely tore the house down. I don't know, like Michael Cole at the end saying an instant classic. Might be a little bit much, but I thought it was a really good match. Valkyria continues to put on very, very good matches and really establishing the women's Intercontinental title the same way the men's was as a workers' championship, so to speak. So I like what she is doing in that way. And I just wish there was a little bit more character with her. And so I do think her teaming with Bayley in this gauntlet is going to help bring a little bit more of that out and maybe give people a little bit more reason to be invested. I think they're a pretty fun tag team, actually. I'm a little disappointed that the Bayley-Roxy feud just kind of went away. And now Roxanne Perez is just still on NXT. I think she is very, very much main roster ready. And I'm a little surprised that we haven't got anything since that little run from Royal Rumble to Elimination Chamber. Also, Dom had a hell of a match against Penta. Like that was really, really good. And they really had people buying that Dom could get a win over Penta. So they are obviously two guys whose styles mesh well. And we are really kind of putting a bit of focus on Dominic Mysterio in this Intercontinental title match. Now, if he wins it, I'm going to shed at least one tear because I would rather Braun have it or I would rather Penta have it. But Dom, like we are starting to see now that there is just a little bit more to this guy than he just happens to have a bit of a weird look and is also kind of hateable because we really like his dad, who he's mean to, and we really like Rhea, who he's mean to. There's a little bit more to this guy now, and so we are getting a few more layers to Dom, and it's starting to see that kind of potential. And I was kind of thinking about it the other day, or watching this match. It is what they should have done, and I'm not saying that the other guy would have got to this level, but it's kind of what should have been done with like a David Flair, right? Like he comes in and has this thing with his dad and he gets just thrust into it way before he's ready. They have really eased Dom into this in a way that has kind of, he has some strengths already, but he has some weaknesses as someone who is still very new to the industry, but they have really highlighted the strengths while letting him work on the weaknesses, and it's really turning him into a well-rounded performer and someone that there is actually quite a bit of future in now with Dominic Mysterio. Honestly, I think you can tell. I thought this was a really strong show. If this would have been the go-home show, I'd be like, yep, we are ready for WrestleMania. Let's go. So they still have another week. They still have maybe a couple other notes to hit, but this was a very, very strong outing for the WWE. The road to WrestleMania can always come with a lot of twists and turns. Some of them are great. Some of them aren't. So let's take a look at the build to WrestleMania so far, as we are just a few days away from it now. What's been working and what hasn't been working? Let's talk about it. The build up to WrestleMania has had a lot of hits, but a few misses as well. So we're going to break those down here on the show today. Just the reasoning for this, I was off in Japan for 3 weeks and didn't get a chance to do my regular, like, every week breaking down of all these things. And so now it's like, you know what, we can just talk about all of them in one big swoop here. So let's start with what's working. I don't think I would have said this before Monday, but I think Jay against Gunther is working. I would put this in the is working category of the WrestleMania builds. I just think, like, It starts out hot when he wins the Rumble and we get all the yeet chants and the amazing entrances and some fire promos and stuff like that, and it was great. And then we get Gunther being a bit of a smarmy heel, and that becomes our act two, which lasted a little bit longer than it needed to. And it went for a little bit as just like, okay, we need a little something, need a little something, need a little something. But the last 2 weeks with the beatdown of Jimmy and just how movie villain that looked, and then the comeback promo from Jay, and just like the whole I'm gonna pray for forgiveness for the person I'm gonna become when I face you at WrestleMania is just oh. So I think that the work that these guys have done to kind of bookend this thing, the middle was a little mushy, but the bookends that we got on this have been excellent. And so I think you have to put it in the what's working category. Also in what's working, Cena and Rhodes every week, banger promo after banger promo after banger promo. They give us just enough each week to satisfy while also advancing things every week and leaving a little bit more on the bone for the next one and for the next one and for the next one. And you get all these different things. Then maybe we hit a pressure point last week where Cody's like, yeah, but they've never chanted, "You can't wrestle at me." And Cena comes firing back at him. And it's like, okay, that's the one where we got him on. And I've said before, AEW does that way too often, but I thought this was a good use of it in WWE. But I just think like the promos in this have been excellent. And you can't like, I'm sure like fine tooth comb, you can pick through some of the motivations, but it's one thing we talk about on this show a lot is let's make this believable for the characters. And all of it has been genuine and believable for these characters so far. So I have loved this build from these guys. I think that the Heyman aspect of the Roman and Punk feud with Seth Rollins has been perfect. You kind of string along, what's this favor? What's this favor? What's this favor? And then you add the twist of it, but it's not just, we still have a couple of weeks to react to it now. And so now with last week, like it's Heyman with Punk. Like I promised him a favor. I'm always going to love my tribal chief, but this is my best friend, and he's asking for a favor, and it's at something we've talked about for over a decade. So I'm going to go with him on this one. How does Roman now has 2 episodes of SmackDown to respond? He's going to be on Raw on Monday. How does he respond to this? Seth now tying all of them together with his promo, and then with the nice little wrinkle of, now you owe me a favor too because I didn't stomp your head through the mat. I just think they have hit all the notes with that they have needed to, and I think they've done an excellent job in building up this feud and kind of attaching another layer to it with the Paul Heyman integration, so to speak. Jade and Naomi have been perfect. This is, without a doubt, the best work of Naomi's career. That this character that she has quickly developed has been phenomenal. I've loved every moment of what Naomi has done so far, and just absolutely bravo to her for putting that on and building up this character in this way. I think she's been great. And Jade has been Jade, and Jade has played the role of Jade Cargill perfectly. She comes out, she looks amazing, she kicks a whole lot of ass, and she leaves. The promo work, maybe not the best, but I think that this has really been a very well-built feud, and I think they've done excellent work in this one. I'll say the Intercontinental title feud as well has been working. I'm a little disappointed. I thought we were starting with AJ against Braun, and I was getting real excited about that, but now Penta in the mix, and then the added intrigue of the Judgment Day guys could basically be a tag team in this match, but it's kind of seeming like they hate each other, so we are going to have probably somewhat of a fracturing going on there, but Dom is stepping up with some really good matches. Finn is always going to deliver, and Braun Breaker looks like a badass. That torpedo spear he had on Monday on Carlito was amazing. So you get a lot of different aspects that are kind of hitting at the right time. So I think this has been a really well-built feud. And on the other side, I've complained for a little bit about SmackDown not necessarily building up that main card. Well, they have now with the United States title feud with LA Knight and Jacob Fatu, and the added wrinkle of Braun Strowman in this thing as well, I think has been really good to give Jacob Fatu a bit of a barrier that he can still look awesome against, but we're not just having him come out here and beat the shit out of LA Knight all the time. And we're showing how tough he is. I just think that they have everything you need to hit with something like this, with a couple of guys who you're trying to not kill their momentum on. Cause like, honestly, like LA Knight, Jacob Fatu, US title, this could be a world title feud at WrestleMania in a couple of years. Next year, even honestly, this year. some big names on here, but like these guys I think are that good, and LA Knight is still that hot that I think you could do that. So you have these guys who you have a lot invested in and could be big players in your future, and you are building up in a way that isn't sacrificing anyone. So I think it's been really, really well done. But with the good does come the bad. So what hasn't worked on the build to WrestleMania? I said it in the Raw recap. Rollins' talk of the soul of the industry is getting to me because we did that last year. The match against Roman last year was supposed to be for the soul of the industry, and that was going to be for it was to save the wrestling industry from Roman Reigns and stuff like that. And now we're saving the wrestling industry from CM Punk, who has been in the company for a year and a half now, and the wrestling industry seems to be doing okay. I don't know. Like, again, there were ways that you could do it with Rollins and with Punk, and I just think that, like, he's going to try to come and ruin wrestling when he's getting teary about being able to main event WrestleMania. Like, I don't see it. So that is one where you say that, and then it's like, well, and then you start to poke holes, and the more holes you poke, the more you find that there are holes to poke, and so it kind of takes you out of it a little bit. The other part of it too, and it's not like they've needed it because it was a win, 0 from The Rock in this whole build. And I get like it, whether he's going to be in Vegas or not appears to be a little sketchy about whether he is, whether he isn't. So we don't want to commit too much involvement to this. And again, Cena and Cody have been great, but we have missed okay, but why with him then? And that is the one layer that we still haven't checked, and we still have a few promos to go before we get to that. But I am very, very surprised that we have had not even a taped anything from The Rock so far. So that's been a bit of a, like it just feels like one extra piece that is missing from this build is the Rock's involvement in it, because he was so good last year, and we're just getting nothing from him this year. We got enough to make it all make sense and to tie it all together, and that's it. But I feel like we need a little bit more, a little bit of anything from him in the next couple of weeks before we get to the main event. Io Sky being the afterthought is really bothering me. Again, bias, she's my favorite wrestler, but it is the fan perception was always going to be she is the third wheel to a Bianca Rhea match. And now I'm happy she is getting the spotlight. I'm happy she is the women's champion, but we don't need the promos to tell us that we don't really care about Io. I think we needed to do a little bit more of establishing Io than just we push her aside when we're having arguments and then she comes in and beats us a couple of times. Like, I think that there needs to be a little bit more legitimacy added to the threat that Io could still walk out of WrestleMania as the champion, and it won't just be by fluke. So I don't think they have done her any favors in this so far. And it's weird to say that because she's going to be a champion going into WrestleMania on a very well promoted match, but it still does kind of feel like she is a bit of an afterthought in a lot of that. And the last one, it's funny, I guess, at times, but the El Grande Americano thing or Americano, sorry. It's not, I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is I thought honestly, it's my own fault, because we get like he's going off to find the master of lucha, and like Chad Gable, the Kurt Angle comparisons, obvious, like Olympian, a lot of American themed gear, ankle locks, suplexes, and very good wrestler, but can also be very comedic at times. And so, like, Gable has been fine in this, but it is just when we're setting out this story and we do that vignette of him off in Mexico and he's meeting the old guy, I just thought there was a little bit more seriousness that could have been done with this one. And then it's the, like, keep coming with the money thing. It's like, well, that's a little lame. And now it leads to this mask thing. Like, I thought that there could have been an actual real story here instead of just a comedic one. And not everything needs to be, I'm going to disrespect your family and all of those things. I get it. And you do need some fun on a show. I just thought this one, if you do it seriously, this could have been a really, really good story and a fun way to maybe introduce someone. And if you don't have someone ready, then you don't have someone ready. But this one's entirely on me, but it has gone in the entire different direction than where I thought. And I haven't necessarily loved it. So that's what's working and what isn't, as we are a week and a bit away from WrestleMania. It is tough to steal the headlines from the road to WrestleMania. AEW's trying, but the headlines they're getting aren't great. Can they course correct? Again, let's get ready for AEW Dynamite. flawless. AEW Dynamite is going down in Baltimore on Wednesday evening. Coming off of Dynasty, that was, again, good wrestling show, but left people a little bit underwhelmed with how it finished. I think you need to make this connection obvious right away with the Bucks and with the Death Riders. I think there are a lot of times people are like, you know what, just let the story play out, just let it whatever. And I know, like, on here when I'm doing the previews, it's like, you know what, we need to know Cena's motivations right away, big promo, and then they just do teaser videos and then they drag it out over a few weeks. And you know what, that was better. I can be impatient. Obviously I can. You know, like I think they should do this is because I want it now and I want to know everything. But this one, I think we want it now and we need to know everything because the patience for this is gone. Like there is no patience for anything else involving the Death Riders v AEW. And so the Young Bucks coming in and adding to this, it wasn't a, oh, well, how is this going to play out? It's like, oh, you fucking kidding me. So you have lost the runway now to do the long-term story thing. You've tried the long-term story thing with the Death Riders for a bit, and quite frankly, it sucked. So now we need to get this thing back on track, or close-ish to the track. So this can't just be a little subtle, whatever. This needs to be this is why we did it. This is why that guy can go fuck himself. And this is why we're going to do this in the future. And these are I think you need to explain it to us like we're five, some of the motivations in this, because if it's just oh, well, maybe, oh, well, who knows, oh, well, I thought just this, and then, like, you're losing people already. And this is kind of, I don't want to say it's your last chance, because it's wrestling, and it's not, but this is your last chance to save this thing before people eventually find out the end of it on Twitter instead of on your television show. So I think it needs to be a big angle coming up on Wednesday. And where does Swerve kind of fit in with everything? He hasn't necessarily been in the Young Buck universe a ton. So where does he fit with all of that? And then there's the obvious Hangman connection in this as well. And so do we get a tag match with them against the Bucks and then Moxley is off doing something else with Contender X, or what is going on here? Like, do we have like a full NWO invasion going on? Is it just a couple of sides who don't really love how AEW is going? Where are we going with this one? So I think we need to kind of figure that out as well. I am interested in what's happening with MJF and the Hurt Business. I kind of thought it was a weird match, and then we get it at the pay-per-view, and now you start thinking of some possibilities. It's like, okay, well, there could be something here. So I'm interested to see what is kind of the next step of this particular feud. And then the last thing, what's next for Okada and Omega? We've had a couple stare downs ending pay-per-view segments before, but now I think we kind of need to start ramping this up, maybe even a little bit. And if we're not going to, what is next for these guys as challengers? Or for challengers, because they are both champions right now. So what is next for them? What is the last hurdle to clear before we get them at All In out in Texas? So a few questions to be answered coming up on AEW Dynamite. That is going to do it for the live stream today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Whatever technical issues we had last show, they seem to be gone now. So happy that we have got that one figured out. This is not the last stream of today, though, for me. Coming up at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, I'm going to be over at twitch.tv/primetimepk. Going to be doing a Blue Jay stream. We're going to be talking Blue Jays, playing some video games, having some fun. Really enjoy those. So come join the chat or just hang out. Lurkers always welcome over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. Going to do that today at 3, and then Twitch again coming up on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Wednesdays are video game days around here. We will have a podcast coming out. It'll be some of the stuff that you heard on the show today. We'll also have a new video coming out on YouTube. I chatted with Michael Harrison from TSN and Covers and Sports Betting Dime, Golf Talk Canada as well, previewing the Masters. Covered a lot of ground with him, so really excited for you guys to check out that interview. That is coming out tomorrow. And then the next live stream here on YouTube will be Thursday. That'll be Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time again. So that is what is coming up for me in the next little bit. Keep it locked on my socials. I'm at Primetime Klein anywhere there is social media. Again, twitch.tv/primetimepk. We are always presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. And if you need a bit of fuel, look, I'm doing 2 streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you need that fuel, and we get it from Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime for that 25% off. That's going to do it for the show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Talk to you guys over on Twitch in a few hours. Have a great middle of your afternoon, and we'll talk again soon.